So after that is done, what are we going to do is we're going to create our manager. So let's right click into our hierarchy, create empty object, reset its position, and let's name this manager. Let's go to scripts, and here I'm going to add separate script, which will be our color selection scripts, which is going to have only one script, and that will be our color selection manager. So color selection manager, and I can copy this and rename this to this and just drag our script onto it after Unity loads it. After that is done, open it up in our Visual Studio, and the first thing we're gonna start off will be changing from one player to another, so from one color to another. The first thing I usually do is remove the comments because they're unnecessary, my bad. And then I'm gonna have a private camera, which I'm gonna call main, or actually camera main. Then what I'm gonna have is the private integer, which will be our current player, or you can call it a color, which by default is equal to 0, because we're gonna have 0, 1, 2, 3, or you can say 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't really matter. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I'm gonna say 0 because I did it like that, so I don't get confused on the way. But what you can do is wherever I say 0, you can just add +1 to it. That will be 1. After this is done, we're gonna create more variables. We're gonna have a public float speed, so how fast it's gonna be, how fast transition will be going. So I'm gonna say here 0.5f and then semicolon. I made it public because I want you to change that, reiterate, so you can see what's better and what's worse, what works out for you. After that, we're gonna public float selection position, which is 13. This is what we did. So we have like 0, 13, 26, and then 39. So this is how much should our camera go until it reaches the end point. For us, it's 13, but you can do anything you want. For now, this will be enough to make that happen. In the start function, what are we gonna do? Actually, I'm gonna rename it to awake because we're gonna reference some things. For example, we're gonna set our camera main, so camera main equals to camera dot main, and then semicolon. After this, we are gonna call out our we're gonna call out our function, which we don't have, and that will be our void camera position, and I'm gonna come back later to it. What will this do is, if we played, for example, with the yellow color, my bad, then what's gonna happen is we're gonna start off our camera with our yellow. So if you play with the blue one, we're gonna start from the blue one. It's not always gonna come up to our red color, but as I said, that will be coming later on. For now, what we need is our next and previous buttons to work. To do that, we're gonna go ahead and create our public void next, open close parentheses, and then curly brackets, and public void previous, open close parentheses, and curly brackets. Inside of the next, we're gonna check if our current player is greater, or actually if it's lower than 3, then, so if it's not at the last position, what you can also do is you can make them like here. If you have multiple characters, you can add here characters, add them inside, and then take this, so take this game object, so for example, public game object, characters parent, like this, and then you can say here characters spanner dot child transform dot child count, and this will do the exact same thing. So it's gonna check how many child count it got. So like right now we have 4, and because I'm starting with the 0, you can add -1 to make it work. But you can also, if you're starting from the 1, you can just add it like here. And just to show you it will work, I'm gonna add it like this, but I will have to add it inside of my manager, so like this, so it actually is going to work. After this, when we click it, what's going to happen is we're going to say current player plus plus, So we're just gonna increase our current layer. Then we're gonna say our start coroutine, and we're gonna start our move to next. So open close parenthesis and then semicolon. So this will be our I enumerator. So let's create one I enumerator, move to next, open close parenthesis and curly brackets. Inside of our move to next, what are we gonna type in? It's going to be, we're gonna move from one to another. How we're gonna do that? We're gonna create a vector 3 temporary position, which will be equal to new vector 3. We're gonna get our camera main, so camera main dot transform dot position dot x sorry about that, plus our selection position, which is the current position we are on. Actually, we're gonna add to our camera position x the selection point. Then we're gonna add the exact same numbers for everything else. So camera dot main dot transform dot position dot y and camera dot main dot position dot transform dot position dot z, and add the semicolon. So with this temporary position, we're gonna add 13 onto our own position, and then we're gonna move. So while our camera main dot transform dot position dot x is lower than our temporary position dot x, we are gonna move our camera until we reach that point. So let's say camera main dot transform dot position equals to new vector 3 dot equals to vector 3 dot move towards, and we're gonna move from our camera main dot transform dot position to our temporary position in the speed. That will be our time. Now if we leave it like this, first of all it will not work, but the second of all, it's gonna happen like in an instant. So what are we gonna do is we're gonna add here yield return new wait for seconds, and we're gonna wait for how much. So we're gonna wait for time dot delta time, and we're gonna again multiply the speed. Here we can add another speed function, but I found that my speed, which I use for the movement, actually works. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And after this, we're gonna say yield return new null. Yield return null. So what's going on here? Let me explain. When you're using IEnumerator and when you type in while, or actually whenever you type in while, it's gonna perform over and over again until it's true. Now when you add a while, our camera is not at the temporary position, it's gonna move until it goes to that position. But when you add a wait for seconds, it's gonna wait a little amount every time this goes in a loop. And that will create the effect that our camera is moving slowly, which is what we want. So let me show you an example. What do I mean? So if I go here and I go to my canvas and go to next, I'm gonna add on-click function, add a color selection manager, and I'm gonna add my next here. Now if I click play, hopefully it will work. So if I click next, boom, it's a smooth slide, as you can see. But if I remove this, so if I remove this, for example, you're gonna see that change will happen, but it will be in an instant. So if I click boom, it's gonna change instantly. Now, of course, if that's something that you like, you can leave it, but I really don't. And what here I notice is that it's getting a bit too fast. So what I can do is I can multiply this by 0.5f. This will make it double time slow. So if I multiply it by 0.5, if it was how much it was, let me check. If it was 0.5, it's gonna be 0.25. So that like bam, it's gonna move really, really slowly. And of course, you can play around with it. You can check what works for you, what doesn't. You can always have it here, select some position, and then move it. I mean the speed, and then move it around. Now what's important to our next is that when we come to our green, that when we click on it, we cannot move. So that is what's important. Right now we have to do the exact same thing, but for the previous, which is the exact same thing, just the opposite. So what I mean by it is we're gonna copy this, so copy, paste it. If here we were checking for the greatest number, we're gonna check it for the lowest. If this is greater than 0, then we're gonna move. But we will not move forward, we're going to move backwards. So we're going to add minus minus, and we're not going to have move to next, but we're going to have move to previous. So let me change it. So previous, and add this here. To move it previous, what we want is we want to minus our camera position dot x with our selection position. We're going to check if our camera is greater than our temporary position, then we're going to move towards it, and we are pretty much done. All we got to do right now is add to our previous button on click event, which will go to our, not characters, but color select manager, which will go to our previous event. Boom, add here previous, click play. If I click onto the right, it's going to the right. If I go to the left, it's going to the left. And if I click here, once again, it's not going to move. Also, what you can do is you can check where are you currently at, and you can disable that button, but I found it unnecessary, but I mean, you can do it if you really want to. Now that we have this, what we can do, which is the simplest thing that we can do, is we can add our play button. To do that, what are we going to do is we're going to create a public void. So let's create our public void play button, open close parentheses, and then curly brackets. And then here we're going to say scene manager. But before we do that, we have to add using Unity engine dot scene management, and then semicolon. So what I was saying is we need scene manager dot load scene, and we're going to load our level 1 and add the semicolon. Now if you remember, I forgot where it was. I think it was in our manager, game manager. Yep, here I think it was, or not. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and search for the player color. I think it was. Nope. I'm gonna just search for the player. I'm gonna show you what do I mean. Okay, we have the player name and we need the color. Color. Where is the color? Where are we changing our color? And we don't have that, so we're gonna add that later on. So what's happening is we're gonna change our player's color depending on the player preferences integer that we currently have. So for example, if we start onto our player color current player 1, that will be our blue. If it's 0, it's gonna be red, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna do that in our play. So we're gonna say that our player preferences dot set integer, and we're setting our player color to our current player, like this, and add a semicolon. So as I was saying, what will this do is when we click play onto any player, we're gonna load the current player which is currently at. So let me print our current player, or better, what we can do is we can print player preferences dot get integer, and we're gonna say our player color, and like this, and this will work. So while we're here, we're gonna set our current player equals to our player preferences that get current color, or actually player color. And after that, we're gonna set our camera main dot transform dot position equals to new vector 3, which will be what? Well, it will be our camera main dot transform dot position dot x, and we're gonna plus that with our current player, and I'm gonna multiply that by 13, so like this, add comma camera dot main dot transform dot position dot y, comma camera main dot transform dot position dot z, close parentheses, and semicolon. So right now we have the 4 players. So if our current color was red, it's gonna say current player 0 multiplied by 13, it's 0. If we multiply that by 1, we're gonna say it's this player over here. If we multiply that by 2, it's 26, which is our yellow, and so on and so forth. So we now know where our camera position will start, and I'm gonna add it here, camera position, open close parentheses, and semicolon. So right now, how we're gonna check this is we need to go ahead and open up our build settings. So let's go to File, Build Settings, and we have to add our color selection over here. You can add it wherever you want, up and down. I'm gonna add it up here because if I remember correctly, we finish our level, and when we finish our level, we're gonna add +1 to it. But if we are at 5th level and we finish the 5th level, we're gonna go to color selection, and that's not something that we want. So if I click play right now, and let's say for example I open up this yellow guy, if I click play, and I forgot to add it, so yeah, my bad. Let's go to play, add on click effect, add color select manager, add the play function. Let's click play. Boom, you can see we are already starting from the blue. If I click play, we're not seeing it right now, but we're gonna see it later. I'm gonna show you how. But if I click play right now, we're gonna start with the yellow one, and if I start with the red one, open, close, we are seeing the red one, and it's working. Now what we need to do is actually create that these colors are actually unlockable until we buy them. And once we buy them, we can click play and play with any color we want. But also what we can do before that is to create, when we click play with the blue color, we're going to spawn with the blue color. And guess what? We're going to do that in our next video. For this one, it's going to be over, and I will see you guys in the next video.